I found that about Sherborne and Dundas a little bit, is that people, it was all kind of gang on gang crime or whatever. And so, and another cool thing about Sherborne and Dundas, I was just thinking about this earlier today, is that there's a bunch of people around all the time. So if there is like a shooting or stabbing or something, that's like a very, like, man, you wanted to do that.
Oh,
Holy
yeah,
crap. There's no
that
like
broad.
accidental, I don't know. But when I was living in Calgary, I lived in the suburbs, and there's no one for miles. So, and it's not just like cracked out desperate people robbing you. It's like 16-year-olds on coke.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're like a 14-year-old just trying to get back to your parents' house, but there's no one around. You're in the middle of nowhere. It's also, I haven't turned off my computer in days. So
Oh shit.
this morning was a travesty.
It's working overtime.
Yeah, 100%. Meeting summary with AI companion. This is kind of a new feature, harnessing the power of generative AI.
Interesting.
I could just summarize our awesome meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, oh, that would actually be great for the podcast description.
Let's see what AI thought of our meeting.
Yeah. I'm like, let me actually enable that.
Two
companion
hilarious guys.
Because I'm like, I could see how that would be like useful for, if you run a company and you're doing these like daily Zoom meetings, you just want like a short, like, okay, I missed the meeting. What was the meeting about?
Yeah.
Someone could send you that instead of watching the whole thing back. But that's wild that they have that. AI is incorporated into everything now.
I wonder how good it is. Yeah, I wonder what it would even say.
We're gonna find out, folks.
Two white guys.
Yeah, imagine it said some shit like that. It's just super derogatory towards us. It's just like two white assholes.
Yeah,
speak about nothing for 45 minutes. How you been, buddy?
Good, man. You live in Ottawa now, I guess.
Yeah, I moved to Ottawa.
We miss you, bud.
I know. It was just like the whole pandemic. I just wanted to get out of the city. Yeah. I just every day I had this feeling in my gut that like shit was only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And it's like never a thought that I had ever had before. Like I lived in Oshawa and I never had a feeling that was like, you're in danger. You got to leave,
Wait,
I left because I wanted.
Oshawa in 2020, you mean? Like
No. I like when I started, I didn't move right from Brockville to Toronto. I kind of like inched myself there, like, okay, Oshawa's pretty cheap. So like I moved to Oshawa and I'm like, okay, let me like save up some cash here and I can visit Toronto to see if I like it. And then I moved to like Scarborough, just like a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Even then I felt safe. And then finally I got into Toronto and lived, like all over the place. But yeah, it was just 2020. I was seeing like, I lived right down near Dundas Square. So it was just like every day I was seeing like cops tackling someone to the ground. I was like stepping around like dog shit all the time. Like I was like, what is this place?
Yeah. I used to live at Sherborne and Dundas, right near the square. And I loved it. It was actually very me.
Yeah. Well, there is like I lived in like Kensington, and I remember people hearing like, or I remember hearing on the news, they're like, oh, Kensington Market is the 5th most shot up place in Toronto. And I was like, yeah, but like I walk through there every day and I don't really see anything. Like, just don't be dumb. Like, just don't walk down there at like 3 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, or don't walk down there with like headphones in. Like, you live in a city, you have to like be aware of your surroundings.
Right.
It's kind of like a given, right? Like,
I found that about Sherborne and Dundas a little bit, is that people, it was all kind of gang on gang crime or whatever. And so, and another cool thing about Sherborne and Dundas, I was just thinking about this earlier today, is that there's a bunch of people around all the time. So if there is like a shooting or stabbing or something, that's like a very, like, man, you wanted to do that.
Oh,
Holy
yeah,
crap. There's no like broad. Accidental, I don't know. But when I was living in Calgary, I lived in the suburbs, and there's no one for miles. So, and it's not just like cracked out desperate people robbing you. It's like 16-year-olds on coke.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're like a 14-year-old just trying to get back to your parents' house, but there's no one around. You're in the middle of nowhere. and everyone's very much in their own homes. No one's looking out the window. No one cares what's happening outside.
Yeah.
So I got mugged constantly in Calgary and I never felt
No way.
that fear at all at Sherborne and Dundas.
Tell me about like the first time that you got mugged.
I'm trying to think of the first time when I got chased a bunch. Like, so I
guess
really
the most
knew...
memorable, like
no,
your top 10.
yeah, I was I knew the neighborhood really, really well because I would sneak into like people's backyards and cars. So I kind of knew secret passageways, I guess, throughout. So if I remember one time I was getting chased, and I had this crazy navigation through this like secret back alley, in through a guy's garbage can, up into his backyard, and then out the front. And that's on Google Maps. That's like not the way to get from this street to that street. Yeah. So from their point of view, I was gone. So that happened a lot in Calgary. Is that you just had to know how to get around, or like hiding in gullies and stuff. There was like kind of this sort of sewagey place that my friends built a fort at one point. So you're getting chased, but you can hide in there. You kind of know exactly where the path will kind of spin off, and then there's like a shrub area, and you hear people being like, "Where'd he go?" Whatever.
Oh my!
And again,
God.
they're just out for the thrill of beating up a kid.
Yeah, sure.
No one at Sherborne and Dundas is doing that.
Like, I remember my cousin telling me when he was a kid, he got like, it was on Halloween night, he got jumped by some like older kids who just like pushed him down, kicked him a couple times, and then took all his candy. That's all they were after. They just wanted his like, pillowcase filled with candy, so they didn't have to do any of the work.
Right.
But it's just like,
wow.
God damn, it's crazy that we have to like, even think about that kind of stuff.
But you don't have to think about that if you don't live in the suburbs.
Yeah. True.
Oh, the frightening city.
Which is like a kind of a funny way to segue into what your word is for the episode.
Oh yeah, that's a crazy segue. I love it. Yeah. Bring it on, baby.
No, but I like going like from one extreme to the other extreme because I feel like you said the word was happiness, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that was very apropos to me.
Yeah, 100%. Like I just think Marc Hallworth. I think like, oh, happy guy,
cheerful dude.
I mean, like cheerful dude.
Yeah,
like,
my album's literally called Happy Pappy.
Happy Pappy.
Yeah.
Where can people stream that?
Anywhere, you name it, man.
Okay.
I put it on DistroKid and it shits it out all over to Spotify and YouTube and everything. Yeah.
I'll put that link in the description below for people to go listen.
The iTunes that helps me the most.
Oh yeah, buying the album actually on iTunes. Yeah.
That's
a little more royalties than the streams.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that stream breakdown of like how many streams you need to get to like make $1? It's ridiculous.
Pretty funny. Yeah.
It's like because I put out like a music album. That's what I was doing for like 2 years after the pandemic.
Is that what this is over your right shoulder here? Johnny Rogers?
Undeniably dope. So for like 2 years when the pandemic happened, I just worked on music because I wasn't really like feeling like one, all the comedy clubs were closed. 2, I didn't want to do Zoom shows.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't want to make any like sketches. I wasn't trying to be on TikTok or anything. And I just found like making music like made me feel better. And it was like something I could still creatively get behind. But yeah,
you missed out on the Zoom shows, man. We had so much fun.
I wish I did a couple of them just to like say I did it, but I was just, I don't know. I just didn't feel funny. I just didn't feel like every day it was just like 9,000 people died.
Dying. Yeah.
Oh my God, Christ. And I'm like, I know there's something funny here. Like I tried. I tried. And then I was like, nah. But like even that, it's been streamed like a few thousand times. So I'm like, oh, I'm happy I've done that. Cause it's like all of a sudden it becomes this like extra stream of income. Like people don't realize, but like once you release an album, like it can be listened to. It might not be listened to at all right now, but that doesn't mean that in like 5 years, all of a sudden you get a massive fan base and they go back to your old stuff and stream the shit out of it. And now you've got an income stream out of nowhere. Like I love that about mixing business with creativity is you can kind of give yourself that comfort of like an alternative stream of income.
Yeah, and a lot of people did things like it, like Che, our buddy Che Dorena, like found this medium that he was like, oh, I love doing this. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about having it's also something that's preserved for you, man. Like our buddy Nick Nemiroff passed away, and I'm so glad his album is out there. You know what I mean? Like,
and
so
like
now
a
we can hear it.
Conan like interaction, like you can
Yeah,
watch
right.
him on Conan still. You
That's
know what I
so
mean? Like
great.
that's legendary. That's
It's so
amazing.
great that all that's preserved. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really like kind of for me what a lot of the motivation for like creating even this podcast is to have that like lasting memory, because life is so fucking fickle. You don't know like when your time is up, basically, right? So it's like do as much creativeness as you can, and I think that's what makes you happy. Like I recently watched this TikTok of this girl kind of complaining about the 9 to 5, and she was like, I don't get it. Like every day I have to work 9 to 5, and then I go to the gym, and then it's time to go to bed, and then wake up and do it again, and I feel like I'm doing nothing with my life. And I was like, of course you feel like you're doing nothing with your life because you're lining the pockets of someone else, right? But I'm like, the way you get out of that is passion. Like whatever like fucking moves you, whatever you want to do that like makes you happy and brings that happiness in you, that's what you like double down on, even if it's making you $0. Because then you can't wait. Like when I was making that album, I was literally like on my lunch breaks, like editing a beat together, and I couldn't wait to like get to that, to work on that. It made me excited, and I didn't mind work is just this like thing that you have to do.
Happening.
Just
But then your
you
lunch
need
break,
food, like
yeah.
but you can
When I
always
was
find time.
when I was in engineering, I would have during my lunch breaks, and actually between, I would have literally, if anybody was paying attention, I basically went to the washroom every time at the same or every day at the same time, and I would go into the washroom and like practice my 5 minutes that I was thinking about that week.
Yeah.
And then I would like do it, and then I'd hear somebody come in, I'd drop trow and go to the washroom. But yeah, you're really, really looking forward to it. When I was a tour guide as well, you tour guide for 2 hours, and then you go on the downstairs of the double-decker bus and you help people on and off the bus. But it's potentially not that crazy. Sometimes it's just like they have their ticket, they go and sit down. And then you do kind of potentially like nothing for 10 minutes between this and the next stop. And in that 10 minutes, you can write a joke, you can write a sketch, you can write. And so that was, and you're right about trying to find the enjoyable. If you dislike the work itself, can you do anything for this to be worth it? I suppose.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
always
you
tell
can. I get
people
it.
look at your job like a video game in a way. Like how, like, so let me explain. So it's like in a video game, to like progress in levels, you need to kind of learn how the game works, what the playing field it is, what you're able to do, what you're not able to do. And then you can, based on that knowledge, you can get yourself to the next level, right? In every type of video game that
Sure.
works level wise, right?
Yeah.
So like with a job, like, let's say I was working as like a front desk person at the YMCA, right? If you look at it just as their description of the job, like selling memberships, whatever, like
Right, greeting people, I guess.
greeting people,
Yeah.
then you won't feel fulfillment into it because you're not attached to that description of it. But if you look at it instead of like, oh, I'm getting experience talking to people, I'm getting experience selling things, which is a applicable skill to everything, especially in comedy. You need to sell yourself, right? Like think of them as like each job is like skills that you're building for your like personal well-being, and a lot of downtime where I could like write jokes, and there's tons of sticky notes, and there was a printer I could use to print out my show posters. Like you got to find the benefits in like every job of like, okay, what can I kind of take advantage of in this to like help me get further in life,
Well, I would argue too. Okay, so that's the point of view of especially a comedian who's got to work some other thing, because you don't deserve to be paid doing comedy when you first start out because you're terrible. So it's and then you try to find those kinds of jobs that actually sort of help it in that way. But conversely, if we're thinking about somebody else, like I met somebody who loved working at this diner. They were perfect for it. And where the hell was it? This was in the States somewhere, Kentucky or something, or Tennessee. And they had never left the state. And their whole life was just pouring coffees and meeting the people that come on through, and they absolutely loved it. And it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with this at all. That's great, in fact. But I was with my parents at the time. My mom was like, "Oh, poor woman. what a shitty life she's got. And I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's true. I think actually
Yeah.
this person is loving every day of her life,
Yeah.
which so few people can say.
Yeah, I know people that have been like waiters or waitresses for like 30 years. It was just like what
They
they
love it.
decided to do. And it's like
Yeah.
then that's you're so lucky that like you found a job that's also your passion. Do you know?
Yeah, I
Because
got
like,
just talking to people, meeting them,
yeah, they're like that
coming around.
fucking lights me up. Like I'm an
Yeah.
extrovert. I love talking to people. It gives me energy, right?
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
everyone
but
else
like
feeling, yeah.
if
How
you're
could
in
you
a
do this?
job where you're like, oh, this sucks, like just quit, just get a different, just
Well,
try
it would,
something else.
yeah, it would be weird to ask the question of like, why the hell are you even here? So I remember
Yeah.
there's a couple of people I met in construction. One time I worked with a guy and I was like, why? He complained all day, all the time. And I was like, how did you even end up here, man? And he
Yeah,
went,
that's a good
well, I bought a
question.
truck. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I got to pay off this truck. And as I was paying off the truck, I bought a house. So
Oh,
now I got to pay off the house. I was like,
oh,
well, these choices are yours. Like nobody told you to buy a truck. Like, and like, how good must this truck be that you work like 14 hours in the dirt and then you sit behind the wheel of this truck and you're like, yes, like,
yeah, I
does
did
the truck
it.
do this?
Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah.
it's possible that it does. You know what I mean? Like you might love like because conversely, I've had other buddies that all they give a shit is they want to be parents. I just
Mm.
want my kid. I can't. I met a guy. Yeah, I was like, "What do you do, buddy?" And he was like, "Who gives a shit what I do, man? I'm a dad." And he was so pumped. He had this like new kid, and he was like, "Oh man, we're about to hit the terrible twos. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I can't wait for them to be a teenager and say I wish I was never born. I can't wait for all that stuff." And I was like, "Well, this
I have a
guy,
person I'm gonna know for the rest of my life.
yeah, I think that's all that guy." So yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Oh, why am I punching in, punching out, lifting heavy things? No, because I got this fucking kid at home, and if all I got to do is lift this,
Yeah.
and my kid gets dental,
Yeah.
damn, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can imagine that. That's like a hard job. But I'm totally with you. If you're like, what am I doing here? Then get out of there, buddy. Nobody
Especially if you
needs you
don't
there.
have kids, like then, you know, if you're like a person with no kids, like definitely quit a job you hate. But like so many people do that where they like you know, it's the keeping up with the Joneses thing, right? Like well, my
Right.
buddy got a house, so I have to have a house. It's like, no,
Yeah.
you don't though. Like if you can't afford it, you shouldn't
Yeah,
actually.
in
Like
fact.
you're gonna fuck
It's
yourself
gonna
like this
cause so many
guy.
problems.
It's gonna cause so many more problems. Like you're not gonna find happiness, eternal happiness in buying a house. You're not gonna find eternal happiness in buying a new truck. It's gonna be momentary. Like it's just gonna happen when you get it, and then you're gonna go, yeah, but there's a new one out now, and now I want the new one.
Yeah, but do you want the new one, or is it like your buddy wanted the new one, or like you're
It's
assigning your
that,
own
right?
value to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was a professor. Does she still do this? She taught French at the University of Calgary for a long time,
Wow.
and which you got to imagine is like kind of a perfect job for my mom. She lives in Calgary where nobody speaks French, but she can surround herself with French speaking people. She loves academia. She
Yeah.
also kind of loves, well, a cool benefit about it too is that she's surrounded by young people. You know what I mean? So without this job, she's with my geriatric dad. Like, oh Christ, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they
She's
kind
like,
of just become each other at
well,
that point,
yeah, well,
right?
she's
Yeah,
surrounded
yeah,
by death and funerals. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
and no new pop culture or whatever. Like, I'd be shocked. I guess I don't. I wonder if my mom would, without the university, if she would even know who like Angelina Jolie is. You know what I mean?
wow, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like young people that like gave her. So, but then she goes, Mark, oh, these meetings, these meetings are gonna kill me. And I'm like, I don't know if it will, man. Like, because you could just quit the job
yeah,
if these meetings are that bad, then get out of there. But then you're losing all this other stuff that you kind of could be focusing on,
yeah.
all these awesome perks.
Is that just human nature to like enjoy complaining a little bit?
That's a great fucking question. I don't know.
You know,
That if it is it like an inherent. I'm sure
like
somebody's done
that's
some
how
study about this.
we've got like that's how we've progressed as a society is because we've never been happy with the way it is, so we just keep building and making new
Right.
shit, and like it just never ends. Like it's
Well, one
just
thing is complacency is kind of a concern of mine. You know what I mean? So
sure,
all I ever wanted to do was just survive off of just doing comedy all the time. And then when I was like 27, it kind of worked. I was like, oh shit, I think I'm doing it now. I think I'm just living. I don't spend a minute doing something I don't want to do. It cost me, I was doing the math, it cost me like $1,300 a month to stay alive. And I was making that. I went, okay. But then the concern is, this is like my girlfriend now kind of pointed this out like years ago. Why stop there? You know what I mean? Like, because I think I would just like kind of be satisfied. But then you don't like attain potentially cooler things or something. I don't know. So complaining is potentially like kind of necessary, because if you're like just too satisfied and happy, you wouldn't actually progress as a human. I think. I don't know.
It almost motivates you to change something. Like I had a buddy reach out to me and he was like, like having some issues with like alcohol. And he was just kind of saying like, I have all this free time on my hand and I'm kind of just like, why don't I make a drink? And now I'm just drinking alone. You know what I mean?
All the time, yeah.
And I was like, well, it sounds like you're complaining about something that you're willingly doing. So what you could do is just not do that. Just when you have the urge to do it, just don't. Just say no, because here's the thing. You already know where that path leads you. You've done it so many times. I'm going to make that drink. I'm going to sit in that chair. I'm going to watch that thing. I'm probably going to pass out there.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep doing that? Then, if you do, it's always there. You could always just do it if you really want to, but you know where that path leads you. So why not try something new and just give it a shot for like a day? Just don't drink for like a day, one day.
Do you? I'm toiling in this now. It's kind of cool. I think it would be interesting to happily progress. That's maybe my new goal in life. Is progression without complaining.
Excited progression. Like I hit this milestone. Imagine what I can do from that point. Because when you started, when you started nothing. When you start at nothing, it's very hard to get to that first level of, like you did, where you're like, I'm just surviving off of comedy. That's amazing. But it's like now you're at that level of surviving off comedy. So it's like, where could I go from there? Where it's the point where I'm buying a house off of comedy. I just got a new car from comedy. What are your goals really from that point? Or I got to travel every month this year from comedy. Like whatever your goal is, I think is the better than being like, this sucks. Because it's like,
sure, that's the opposite. Yeah, totally. People being like, because my brother lives in California, and he, those fucking palm trees and stuff, man.
It's beautiful.
And he's like, oh, and then he'll like drive past like a $25 million home in the Napa Valley, and he'll be like, it's never enough, never all. What do you got to do to be this fucking guy? And it's like, buddy, you're surrounded by palm trees. Like, enjoy it, man.
Take a breath. Go to the beach.
Which you can do at any time of the year.
For free.
Yeah, for free. But I don't know. Is that complacent to then just be satisfied or something, or is his exasperation motivating him to make $25 million next year? What, you know what I mean? Like,
I think two things can be right at the same time. Like I think the complaining could motivate him also, but my point is it kind of like dampens the process, or like makes the process feel like negative, which you don't really want to include any negativity in progression, because then if you don't hit the goal that you wanted to hit, you're upset at yourself, and then you start getting self-destructive because you complained and you tried and it didn't work. It never works for me. I'm never, and you go back into that spiral of complaining. But if I
have a bit about that, about deadlines, about our arbitrary deadlines that you put on yourself. And it's like, well, if you don't do it, what are you going to jump off a bridge? Just keep going. I don't know. Who cares when it happens? I don't know. Especially when people put deadlines on themselves that are dependent on other people, kind of. Like we have friends, I'm sure, where it's like, this is the year, man, I'm getting just for laughs. You're like, well, there's actually a billion moving parts to that like, and you are in control of like one of them. Whereas like this year, I'm going to have a 7 that I think is really good. I'm like, okay. That's a little more in your control.
For sure.
And those, but yeah, then it's like, yeah, if you don't get just for laughs, are you gonna fucking shoot yourself?
Are
Like
you
that's
gonna
crazy.
quit?
Like,
Like you're just gonna quit if I don't get it? I'm
yeah,
gonna quit. Like what kind of mentality is that? You know?
I went to Humber College back in 2011, and I went to college with a bunch of people who had that exact mentality. Oh, I didn't get into this show, therefore I'm out of the business
Uh,
entirely. It's like, well, see ya. I guess I
yeah.
don't know. It's a bummer.
If that's the kind of willpower you have, then goodbye.
Well,
You
that's
know,
the other
like
thing too. It's like, yeah,
you're
like
not gonna make it. Don't worry. Like
it's gonna happen.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
if you were so willing to quit, it was never gonna happen for you. Like
Hmm.
like I
Especially in
started
comedy.
at 19
Hmm.
and like there's no plan B. Like I said to myself even then, like as long as I get to do this forever, I'll be happy. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
what I'm doing to supplement that. As long as I get to do comedy, that's the pure happiness. And I
Yeah.
remember Bert Kreischer was just recently telling a story about how he had never, his whole comedy career, he was never invited to JFL ever.
Mm.
He never did New Faces. And the only time that he was invited to JFL was when they were awarding him with Comic of the Year. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you don't need
Whatever.
them, like it's all arbitrary. Like it's just a couple of people that started this business, they called it just for laughs, and now it's become this thing that you feel like you have to do.
Well, it
So
is awesome. Like
it
it is a
is, I'm
cool
sure it's
thing,
great. It's just like
but
a
it's also
cool book
like
show.
the Mark Forward had a keynote speech or something. Do you remember when like I'm not trying to dismiss all the work that everybody did with Cask and everything. When that weird not strike, that thing happened with SiriusXM
Oh
where
yeah,
they
where they were
like took
playing all
everybody's
American
it was
comics and
exclusively American content.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mark Forward did have an interesting thing about how it's like everybody was up in arms, but aren't you all working comedians? Like, why was this such a crisis? Aren't you doing shows all the time or whatever? And I
Yeah.
understand it's like, no, you're getting used to this like huge supplement of income that
Yeah,
comes in
they're
or
like
whatever. I
you
get
have
it.
Stockholm syndrome, like you're under their boot of saying like, oh, this is as long as you're working, it's fine. Like, because I get why they were upset. They like there is no industry in Canada, like not really.
Right. I've been reading a lot about this recently too, and people telling you to move down in the States. And I wonder if that is kind of self-perpetuating of the reason why our industry is like that is because it's kind of us that are help making it so.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
like we're just not
could we?
banding together, and we're all like going for the easy out of, well, if I go to the US, it'll happen faster for me, you
Well, yeah, is
know?
that even true? Like a guy like
Yeah.
Nima, um, and this is what I think is cool about like social media and those kinds of
Hmm.
presences and stuff. A guy
Definitely
like
helped.
Nima is getting people into venues that otherwise I don't think they even would have known existed. And
Yep.
so, should Nima get out of Dodge immediately? You know what I mean?
Only if
Or
he
could he
wants
just
to.
build it?
He could just stay here and keep building it and finding new ways to create shows to build an even bigger
Right,
income. And it's social media, so I'm sure he's getting YouTube ad revenue on that channel. I'm sure he's
right.
part of a TikTok creator program that's paying him a little bit too. Like the only reason why we leave Canada is because we're not making enough money to survive. But if the money to survive comes, why would we leave if you like it here? If you
Exactly.
like
That's
it
the other
here,
thing.
like if you like, I like
Yeah.
living here. I think it's sick. I like
Yeah.
Canada.
That
Fall, beautiful. You know what I mean? Like,
it's
but
cold as hell.
cold. It's pretty cold. Yeah, not gonna lie. It was 5 degrees this
Yeah,
morning. I
currently.
was like, fuck.
I yeah, and it's interesting that people have been posting things and then big threads, and it's cool to read all the comments. And then it's
Mhm.
a really kind of 50-50 of people being like, yeah, get the hell out of here or whatever. But then there's always somebody that's like, I don't know, man. I've been living off comedy in Canada for like 30 years and I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
I have to like, and I don't necessarily like the defiance of it all, where it's like, you have to, you got to get out of
Yeah,
here. And it's
yeah, yeah.
like,
It's
I
the
think
same thing as
that,
the Just for Laughs thing. It's the same
sure, you
mentality.
have to.
You might as
Yeah.
well quit if you don't go to the US. It's like, what?
Right. Why are you even spinning your wheels
Yeah,
here?
that was another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, because I wanted to like put together this collection. And I've kind of been leaning more this way in the recent episodes, but I want to showcase Canadian comics. I had the unique opportunity of being able to meet so many comedians over the years that
Mhm.
I love and I think are hilarious and I think people should know more about. And like some of the older comics, they don't have that kind of like I'm going to start doing social media so that people find out about me. So this is kind of like a vehicle to get them into a space they wouldn't normally even want to venture into. Like I had Mike Wilmot on. I don't think Mike Wilmot gives a fuck about social media. Like he posts on Facebook, here's my show, and he does maybe a little video, but he's not like going like Nima would. Nima's making like sketches every day and like
Mike's not
different.
doing that.
It's just different, right?
Mike doesn't even know how to use e-transfer, man. He's the best.
So...
I love Mike. He's so crazy.
He's so funny.
He's so fun. But another word I was maybe going to use for this podcast is community. Which I don't know if anyone's done. What are some of the words that people? I saw the vulnerability one with Ryan Belleville.
Yeah.
Has anyone talked about community?
I don't think I've actually had community.
Because I was living in New York over the summer and doing comedy down there.
Sick.
And they didn't really foster community, which I thought was really it makes sense. There's like gajillions of people and people are just coming in and out. And there's jackasses like me that are like there for a few months and then being like, bye. Like,
So
we don't care about this guy who's not hanging out.
Yeah, you got to be hanging out for like several months, I think, before you find
years, I would imagine.
Yeah, right. And to find like your clique, right? Like to find people that you just mesh with and start doing shows with.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever.
But even that is like a community. Here, how long were you living in Toronto doing comedy?
Oh God.
Because if you left in 2020.
Left in 2020.
I was doing shows. I can look up when I was doing shows with you. This might take forever.
2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 2015 is when I moved.
From what, at Scarborough, I guess, or
yeah. 2015, 2016, somewhere in that ballpark.
Well, so then people always talk about the clickiness of Toronto comedy. This is another thing I think people are just putting on things. You can't live in Canada. Oh, Toronto's so clicky. Is it clicky? What are you talking about? I don't know.
I have said that actually before.
Yeah?
Because when I first came there, I noticed that there was like groups of people that would go to certain like comedy bar and like a certain maybe Ossington.
Right.
And for me, like I was trying to find like, friends, like comedy. I wanted to make friends that were comedians because then we could all hang out and talk about the stuff that we love. That was like the thought that I had in my head. What I didn't realize is that there's just certain spots that people are just more comfortable at versus others. Right.
Yeah.
And what it really is just like friend groups essentially that people have made by going to open mics. And then like, because I remember one time I went to an open mic and Rick Rowley was like, hey, I'm going to hit up like 2 more shows. You want to come with me? I was like, yeah, sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then we became friends
to do this. Yeah.
right there. I never would have thought to go from here to there or to over there. And then from the outside looking at that, you would think like, oh, that's a little clique that goes from that show to that show to that show. It's like, no, it's just what we do.
Just our guy. Yeah.
We just happen to be to
Yeah.
But you see how it's easy to view it on the outside. You view it as like a clique because you're not in. That's all it is.
I guess so. I feel like I've done that with dozens of comedians over the year. You know what I mean? I'm just
yeah.
I don't know. We're not part of a crew. One thing is that it's like, there's rooms that people gravitate to because they kind of like it because it's like sort of easier for them. I suppose you would also, oh wow, Toronto's really cliquey. I'm like, I guess if you choose to be that way.
Yeah.
Do you ever try to go to a room where nobody and you're going to get your ass handed to you because you're like, can I make these people laugh? This is crazy.
Danger room at the corner comedy
a place
club.
like that. Yeah, a danger room kind of environment. That place was a lot of fun. Like,
it was crazy.
But yeah, so it's like, well, they got like a clique down there. I'm like, not necessarily. Anybody could do it. They're not kicking people out.
They're not like, you're not welcome here.
Yeah, you're not one of us. Yeah, I've never heard you're not one of us.
Yeah.
Comedy show.
No one's ever actually like completed the assumption that this is in fact cliques. It's always just been an assumption from people that are on the outside. Like, I talk to comedians in Ottawa now, and they like kind of echo the same thing. Like, oh, I don't want to go to Toronto. It's like too cliquey. It's like, really? It's just friend groups. Like you could just go there, work on your comedy, and if you're really funny, you make lots of friends. You know what I mean? Even if you're not funny, you'll make lots of friends.
Yeah.
Just be cool. That's all.
Yeah, I've never. I've seen people get banned, I guess, but that's actually just
Sure,
because
it's a
you're
different.
like a criminal.
Yeah, you're a
Just
literal
saying something
criminal.
wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
but it's
killed a
not.
guy today. The crazy part about that is,
Yeah, isn't that
it's like that's
nuts?
your premise.
Yeah,
Did you just admit to killing somebody?
yeah. But community is kind of an interesting thing that can make your whole show better and make even from as low as like an open mic or something. This open mic could be fine if we're all just part of it. I just started one in Toronto on Sunday nights. That our inaugural night was last night, and it was even the space isn't necessarily particularly good, high ceilings and stuff. But it's like,
Hmm.
no, if you know how to behave to make this show great,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
all
yeah,
do it. It's going to be
yeah.
phenomenal.
I I have to say, I was thinking about even like tweeting this or posting this, but like we need to like comedians need to give their flowers to people that produce open mics because that is like a that is a
Give them
job with
flowers.
no, you know what I mean? Like that, give them respect at least because that is a job that doesn't pay most of the time. You're spending your free time running this
Hmm.
open mic. Most of the comics are going to suck because they're trying new stuff out and it's
Yeah,
just not ready. But that's what that place is for. And there's these producers that like host the whole thing too. It's like
yeah,
you're purely doing that out of a love for comedy, and I think
yeah.
that's incredible.
I think it's also funny when there's like bumps
Yeah,
and
bumps in
people
an open
coming
mic is
in,
so great.
and it's like, why the hell
No bumps. We should
are
ban bumps.
well, the show I run on Sundays is no bumps. I don't know.
Yeah,
You're
perfect.
13th on the list. You're 13th on the
Yeah,
stage. Who cares?
yeah.
What's the difference?
First come, first serve.
Right. And it's funny that you talk about like, yeah, everyone's doing poorly because it's like new jokes. You would argue that, well, what about this like professional who's swooped in? And yeah, I hate to tell you that in my experience, at least 50% of the time, the professional ends up doing worse than everybody else because they don't care. And
Yeah,
they haven't really been watching the show. They've got their
yeah,
backpack on during their set. They're looking to get the hell out of here anyway.
yeah.
So
They're
it's
just
like,
going through the motions, basically. Like they're
right.
not even really like trying. It's just
Did you ever work with David Kupchak? Do you remember that guy? He
the name
ran
sounds super
something
familiar.
at
I
Lola and
probably did.
he
Oh
ran something
yes,
at
yes, yes,
Timeless.
yes. I've been to yeah both of those.
Yeah, he ran two, I guess you can call them marathon shows, show up and go ups with no caps. And he ran two of them a week for free, I think. And got like wildly abused by everybody at the do
Yeah.
just bumping or like just demanding bumps and special privilege or whatever. And he's like, why? I don't know. Like he just did it
Oh my
and he got
God.
nothing from it.
Well, here's the thing.
It's
You want
great.
to do it because you think that it's gonna like pay you favor a little bit. There's a little part of you that's like, if I get this guy up early on my show, maybe he'll reach out to me to be on his book show, or maybe he'll
Right.
ask me to open for him or whatever, right? I think
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that, of course.
Yeah. But I was just talking about this on another podcast is that, Johnny, what are two shows and two comics that trade works? What are you talking about? There's no way that's a fair trade.
No, yeah,
Someone's
yeah,
losing.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I got 2 to 1 odds. The person who has a booked show or is like a touring headliner
Yeah.
is getting your bump, demanding to get bumped on your show, taking it, and is never thinking about you again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Probably.
1,000%. Yeah, yeah. You're
Yeah.
just kind of like a pawn in that little game there.
Yeah. I was
Jeez.
down in LA in May, and it's pretty funny how much of that's going on in LA of like, hey, you got a show? I got a show. Hey, you got a show? Like it's like before they say hello, it's like you got a show? Come on.
Yeah,
Like
a lot
oh,
of good to see you again upon meeting people for the first time. I got
mhm.
that a lot. I was like, this is actually my first time here. I would just be honest with them
That's
because they don't want
crazy.
to offend anybody because they meet so many people that they don't want to make like they don't want to be like, hey, nice to meet you, and you're like, we did a show like 2 nights ago. That's how
What?
like kind of
Whatever, that's fine.
cooked their
Yeah.
brain is.
But yeah, you get a lot of that when you're running open mics and stuff.
Sure.
You get a lot of people going, "Wow, you don't remember me? I did your
Oh,
show 6 months ago." I'm like,
yeah.
How was I possibly going to remember
Yeah,
you? You know how
yeah.
many people I see?
You're
Jesus,
like, I'm
Mark.
sorry to say, you're just not that memorable.
Well, but you know how hard it would be. unless
Yeah.
you did something crazy where it's
Yeah.
oh, you got
The guy that took
arrested
his
at my
pants
show.
off.
Yeah, right. Somebody one time, do you know Cody Crane?
Yes,
He runs the
yeah.
Spook podcast.
I actually grew up a block over from Cody Crane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our parents worked together.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
He has a story about a mic that I used to run. You would have maybe been around to Sirens Comedy or
Oh
whatever.
yeah. I remember Sirens. Yeah.
One time a guy, apparently Cody tells the story better than I do, but there was a guy who Cody was watching this guy do what looked like exclusively punchlines, no setups. He was just saying silly things or something. And it was like absolutely bombing. And then, good night, everybody. And then after the show, he was talking to Cody. He was like, man, I'm surprised that didn't really work out. Cody went, what? Yeah, what was going on? He was like, well, those are all punchlines to setups that I did 8 months ago here. And Cody was like, baffled in his head, I guess, being like, you thought anyone would remember what the hell you said 8 months ago?
Yeah.
And also, like, what makes you even think it's the same people that are here? Why? What a
Yeah.
crazy idea. I'm surprised no one remembered my fantastic setup.
Sir, do you believe you live in a simulation right now and we're all just not really here?
Yeah, we're all programmed to know exactly what you said.
Yeah, like what? That's wild.
Which I thought was so damn funny.
Oh my God, man.
I keep every show that I do in a big old spreadsheet.
I love that you do that. I've seen you pull from that before, and that's amazing. You write down like what you've got paid to from it, or like
headlined a pretty fun yet loud show for Johnny Rogers on the top floor of a rowdy bar, which would have been the Duke.
Dead.
January 30th, 2017. Let's see if you're in here again.
Mark's got the receipts.
Yeah, did a cool pop-up show with Johnny Rogers. Had fun. Still need to trim a lot for 5 minutes though, because I guess I was working at 18 Dalhousie. What the hell is that?
Oh, that was like the secret show that I did. That was like for Easter Seals,
I
the
love
charity.
that show.
Yeah. I booked this like it wasn't like Airbnb, but it was like rent a space or something like that. Like you could just rent event spaces that were just people's like condos that they just turned into an event space. And the owners were like, yeah, you can rent it, but like, and it was so cool, but they're like, you can't post the address. And I was like, well, how the fuck am I gonna tell people where to go? Like what? So I had to work around that. I would like do like I just called it secret show, and then I said once you buy the tickets, like the address will be revealed to you. Like, and I would just send them the address. Right. So it was just such a crazy concept. Like I'm baffled that anyone actually came because I couldn't post the address.
I think Anto Chan was on that show too. Something. Yeah. And that guy with one arm, what's that guy's name? Jameson.
Yeah.
That guy's funny, isn't he? Yeah.
And Nick.
Ritzy?
Nick Ritzy, yeah. Nick Ritzy was on it too. Because they were both they were both like kids that took advantage of Easter seals. So I booked them specifically because that was the charity that we were like raising money for. So it was like a perfect representation to have two people who had used the programming and like knew all about it and like it had helped them as kids, So I thought that was
he's got a kid now or something. Whatever happened?
I don't know. Oh yeah, Nick does have a kid. Yeah. I should get him on the podcast too.
September 2017.
Wow.
Happiness. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for all these bookings and all the great stage time you offered all of us in the community and stuff, man. Are you running things in Ottawa?
Yeah, so I just started a monthly show called Comedy and Tacos, and we've sold out 2 months in a row.
Hell yeah, buddy!
It's great.
You're having fun in the Ottawa scene, or
I'm having fun now. Once
what's the difference?
It's smaller. That's really the difference. And I think community is a good word for this episode because like the community here is just feels like very tight knit. Like every, I had someone on my show who I saw like once at an open mic, Louise, and she had been doing comedy for like 6 months. And I was like, she was really good at the open mic, and there was a few audience members there, so you could tell it was real laughs.
Sure, yeah.
And so I was like, oh, let me book her on like a Saturday show because like I remember being 6 months in. If someone had invited me to be on a Saturday show, like I'd be fucking pumped.
Yeah,
like,
your heart explodes. Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna get paid. I'm gonna have like a free meal or whatever. Like it's like a legit. I make sure it's like a legit thing and take care of the comedians like for these shows. And I'm just doing the next one November 25th. So
that's cool. Right on.
hopefully once I started like a show here, that's when I kind of felt like, okay, now I've settled into this like comedy community.
Yeah.
Like just bopping around, it's a little hard.
It reminds me of Calgary a little bit, or whatever, that scene where it's like, one amazing thing about Calgary, when I first moved to Toronto, I was like, that is dope actually that happens. But although that happens in Toronto now, but there was only one place on a Monday that anyone would ever go. There's nowhere else to practice or see comedy or whatever. There's only this one spot. So what was cool about it from a community point of view is that I'm definitely going to see Johnny tonight. There's nowhere else for him to be. So seeing you week after week after week, we become friends a lot faster, I guess.
Yeah, for
Whereas
sure.
when I first moved to Toronto, we didn't have show up and go ups, so there wasn't like, whoa, I think I kind of recognize that Johnny guy. It's been like 3 months since I've seen it. It's not because neither of us are working. It's just by happenstance. We're just not hitting up the same mics.
Yeah.
So, but then in 2012, everything kind of changed with Van Dad's Skin of My Nuts or whatever. That had a guaranteed
that
spot.
Show is crazy.
It was
in
so
that
fun.
tree house of a room.
Yeah, it was great. But every week, Nigel Grinstead was going to be there. Don Perret was going to be there. Michelle Christine was going to be there.
Mike McDonald showed up one night.
Yeah.
Like craziness.
Ron Jossel would be there. Ryan Long would be there. And it was just great. That's a insane community now that it's like, okay, I guarantee I'm going to make friends with these people a little better because I see them every week.
Yeah.
Right now in Toronto, there's like, you see people quite a bit, but it is like a chance. It's a little more scattered, but I think we do have a good community. Another cool thing is that everybody's got each other's backs in a cool way in this city of, even like people sitting, I'm trying to think of like little basic ass things. Comics like sitting in this one row at the comedy bar, and then people come in and you're like, hey, comics, get the hell out of here so you can make room for these paid customers. And everyone's like on board, they like get it, you know what I mean? Hey, Johnny, can you introduce the show through the God mic? You're like, yep, you know exactly how to do it. You see all these hats. And I think other communities being like, the fuck, you want me to what? Nah, man, fuck off. Like, is there any chance you can get off your phone and usher someone for 2 seconds? What the fuck?
No, for real. Yeah, there is a little bit of that in like the Canadian communities, I would say too, like the willingness to just kind of like jump in when necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the number of times you walk into a place like the Comedy Bar and it's like, Johnny, my opener bailed. Can you do 10 minutes, please? And you're like, all right, sweet. I even know who you are. Yeah. I think that's fantastic. I think that's a cool thing.
There's one question that I always ask my guests towards the end of the podcast, and it's if you could make a phone call to 15-year-old Mark, give him a piece of advice based on what you know now, but it won't affect your timeline. So anything you tell him is not going to change your current life whatsoever. You're just helping him out based on all the knowledge that you've accrued over the years.
So what? I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is like a joke answer of like, man, watch SNL tonight. It's gonna be crazy. Like, like what?
He's like, it's Thursday.
Something. But I guess another thing, especially if it doesn't screw up your timeline, then to just like keep going. I guess 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was like, because I'm pretty depressed. 15, hold on, that was like where the hell? No, 16, I was pretty damn depressed. Just the idea of like, just there's hills and dales. I guess maybe that's what I would tell this guy. I'd be like, yeah, man, there's like rough like swaths of time where 9 months go by that you're like, what the hell am I doing? Mm-hmm. Maybe I couldn't prep him. I couldn't be like, hey, so 2005 is going to be hell. Can I say that? Can I say that kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. You can say anything you want. The reason why I say like speaking to yourself, because I find it puts you back in that mindset a little bit of like, okay, what was I doing at that time? Which kind of tailors the advice a little more. Because really what the question is like, what advice would you give to someone who is 15? You know what I mean? Like a young person, right?
Sure.
But saying it's you gives me different answers every time, right?
Yeah. You know, it's a great. So you got Steve Martin's thing behind you there. Have you ever read that book, Born Standing Up?
Yeah, I love that book.
A cool line in that book that helped him a lot. Apparently, he was working at Disneyland and he showed up and some girl, he asked a girl to a dance or something, and she said no. and he was like all upset. And then he went to work, and he had these older colleagues or whatever at the magic shop that he worked at, and he was like, "Huh, Stacy rejected me." And the guy went, "Yeah, that's gonna happen a lot." And Steve Martin, like just in that line, apparently was like, "Oh, that's kind of
Yeah.
nice to know that this is a totally natural thing that everybody experiences, I guess." So that's it. I'm trying to put a line like that back in 15-year-old head of like, yeah, man, there's hills and dales, and you come out of them. There's like a resilience element where it's cool to catch. Have you ever caught your own resilience? You're like, man,
Yeah,
I'm better at handling bad times than I was 10 years
yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You're like, if this had happened to me 10 years ago, you're like, I would have had a mental breakdown.
Yeah, totally.
Like, what am I gonna do?
Correct.
I don't know what to do. And it's like now it's like, okay, no worries. We just do this, and this.
Yeah. Or,
It's 'cause you've been
this is
through
just
it.
a drastically unlucky day. I was telling somebody about this recently. I had a time where it was like a blizzard, and just I missed every bus, and it was fucking freezing. And then I went up to the metro that was kind of close to my house, and at the time, and I had my hands full of groceries or whatever, and there was a spot to like kind of jaywalk, and so when there was no cars, I like jumped out into the street, but it was such a snowy, slushy day that I didn't realize it was an absolute frozen, like a lake,
Like,
and my feet just went right into this thing.
No.
And then right then, a huge gust of cold wind blew my hood back. My ears are exposed and frozen, and I can't put my hood back up because my hands are full of groceries.
Oh no.
It's like, and it was just such a sequence of like brutal, shitty things. But in my head, really being like, tomorrow's not going to look like this. This isn't what every day is.
Yeah. If every day was that, a different story.
Then you might have to change. But that's kind of nice to remind yourself of like, this is just a shitty day. Tomorrow will be different. Don't worry. Because yeah, you're right. So it's like, well, I'm gonna go home and put a toaster in the bathtub right now because I can't deal with this. But I don't know, I'm noticing some improvement there.
I always tell people too to like look back if you're going through like a shitty time, just for perspective on how quickly things can change. Your situation or whatever, just look back to like where you were a year ago, put yourself a year ago. Now, could you imagine yourself where you are currently? Most of the time, the answer is no. I could not have imagined I would have been doing this, been here, whatever, right? So it's like, so where do you think you're going to be a year from now? Not in this same position.
I know.
So just deal with it and learn from it and move on.
I'm so baffled by the question of, hey, John, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Like, who the hell has any clue? Especially during pandemic and stuff. You're like, no one saw this coming. Are you crazy?
10 years, I think it'll be like kind of Mad Maxy. So maybe a strap to the front of a Jeep or something.
Yeah, like that's where I see myself. I'm the guy with the flaming guitar. That's going to be me. Do you have episodes from the pandemic or pre-pandemic?
No, I started after the pandemic.
Yeah,
like decently enough, probably like late 2021, maybe.
I did Tracy Hamilton's podcast in like January of 2020, and you could hear our voices being like, "Oh, the environment. What's the world gonna be like?" And it's like, you don't have a clue, dude.
Nature will heal itself because we'll all have to be stuck inside. The ozone will like reform.
Yeah, totally. There's no way anybody could have told us that.
No way. You could never have seen that. My favorite thing would be to have video of people December 31st at the New Year's party being like, 2020 is our year. This is my year. And then it's like show a video of them like March 10th, 2020. Just like global pandemic. I don't have a job.
What do you mean? Fuck. Even the 10th, man. March 10th was I remember the timeline so well. It was a Tuesday. I was still doing shows. Toronto SketchFest was still going on.
It's crazy.
And sold out crowds.
All hot breathing on each other. They were spitting into each other's mouths.
Yeah, weren't even thinking about it.
God.
I think the NBA was closed by the 10th. Wow. There was some,
when that happened, people were like, "Oh shit!"
Right? Yeah. Remember that guy who was like touching all the microphones? The guy from I can't remember that guy's name.
What was his name?
He played for Utah.
Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, he was like, yeah, right. Then got the whole team COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And the next day, it's like, this guy's got COVID.
Crazy.
God damn. And it's like, I'm not just saying that some people had great times in pandemics and started new businesses and stuff. I'm not like really shitting on the pandemic or whatever, but it's just, it is funny to think of like the before and after.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. There's no way you could have seen that coming.
You can't predict anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But just enjoy what you're doing right now, and I guess think of the longevity of it. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
Now, is your Instagram still hacked?
No. That's a great question.
Because I want to shout out your Instagram. So can people follow you at Hallworth Mark?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. Are you
How did you get your account back?
Man, it was, again, community. So many people reported it. People were super nice. And then I had to like do a thing where Andrew Barr told me that a similar thing happened to him when you have to like take a selfie and like look to the left, look to the right, and then that sends to Instagram. Unfortunately, my Instagram is my face 1,000 times, so it's like, this is clearly this guy. Yeah. But then even that, so because it's all meta now, everybody's connected. My Facebook, my Messenger, the whole fucking thing got infiltrated or whatever. And the best part, again, going back to community, is once I got it back, looking through all the conversations, and man, comedians are awesome. People are
they're all messaging the account, being like, "Fuck you, hacker!" Like,
there's a little bit of that, but also the hackers like, sending him Bitcoin recommendations or whatever.
Yeah. And I invested with Sue Hines, and I loved everything. It's like some shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and people replying being like, "No way, Mark. Hey, we still hanging out on Thursday?" Like people would like fuck around with it. People would try to call it and stuff. Like it's so funny. The list. Man.
I love that.
Yeah. So great community. Love it.
Community is definitely our word for this episode, for sure.
And I think we can build it to continue making the Canadian comedy scene something that you would be completely normal to stay in.
Yeah. And like have like a tier system of like where you want to get to, like, sure. I want to be like so and so, like look at them, they're killing it and they've never left. Like we need more of those people.
That would be fantastic.
Order for that to happen.
Yeah.
This is the podcast that does it.
Yeah, this is it. It starts with this.
Starts with this podcast.
I can't wait to talk to you in 5 years.
All right, man. I'm gonna head out, but thanks so much for making the time to do this. I'll send you the links and everything once it's up.
Yeah, I'll happily share whatever, man, on my current functioning Instagram.
Your functioning Instagram, we'll do a collaboration post.
Yeah, that'd be great. I can't wait. Also, invest in Bitcoin. It's really good.
Yeah. It is him. It was him the whole time.
Oh no.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, man.
You too, buddy. Cheers.
Jeez.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.